put his mic on.
My name is Ivy Stevens. I am the daughter of John Stevens and the stepdaughter of Michelle Stevens. Every morning as a child, I would sit staring out the front window, anxiously waiting for my dad and Michelle to pull into the driveway to pick me up for the weekend. It was my favorite day of the week. I would grab my bag, run out of the front door, and do a running jump into my father's arms. Absolutely elated by the fact that I was spending the weekend with him. They always had some fun activity planned for our time together, whether it was the beach, climbing trees, board games, or even just a movie night with an endless amount of popcorn. Some of my fondest memories with them involved playing hide and seek for hours, dancing in the rain, and cruising around in Michelle's burgundy Land Rover with the windows down, blasting music. To me, it didn't matter what we did as long as we were together. Even at a young age, I can remember craving their presence. I longed for the week to be over, for it only to be Saturday morning again. I have wonderful memories of them, not only as a little girl, but also as an adult. Even though it might not have seemed like a blessing at the time, I was lucky enough to have lived with them as an adult. They took me in when I needed help, as all good parents do. When we weren't working, we spent our days on the boat and our nights in the garage, talking, drinking, and laughing. Some neighbors and a few close friends of theirs would always head over after work to hang out in the garage with them. It was like clockwork every night for years. The same people, the same drinks, the same jokes. My dad and Michelle were like magnets. They attracted people to them because of who they were. They were fun, genuine, caring people who just wanted to be happy and make everyone around them happy. They built an incredible life together, a type of life and love for each other that I don't believe many people will ever be able to attain. I feel so lucky I was able to spend those 3 years with them because I was able to learn who they were as individuals. I saw both their good and bad as they did mine, but it only strengthened our bond along with the love and respect that I had for them. After they died, Michelle's sisters found dozens of love letters that they had written to each other After they died, Michelle's sisters found dozens of love letters that they had written to one another that spanned from the beginning of the relationship. Along with the letters, every birthday and anniversary card had been saved from the very beginning of John and Michelle. Inside contained words of affection, admiration, and endearment. Reading these letters only reinforced to me just how much they had cherished each other, what 24 years of love had made possible. My dad and Michelle were wonderful. I miss them with my heart and soul. I wish I could sit in that garage with them again, see their smiles one more time, give them one more big hug. I wish I could tell them thank you for everything and how much I love them, but that opportunity was taken away. Despite the beautiful memories I have of them, the reality of what happened to them the night they were murdered has overshadowed those precious moments. They are difficult to remember, almost forgotten. I have to dig deep to find them. I have to pry them to the surface to remember the good. Now, when I think of my dad and Michelle, I envision them lifeless and mutilated. I picture their bodies cut up, torn apart, and covered in blood. When I think of Michelle, I try to imagine how she felt when she found you staring back at her. How her breath left her body out of fear. I wonder if she tried to run or if she was too paralyzed by fear to move. When I think of her, I wonder how much horror she had to endure before she became unconscious, or if she even lost consciousness before she succumbed to her injuries. I cannot even begin to imagine how terrified she must have been when you attacked her, beat her, stabbed her, broke her nose, knocked out her teeth, slammed her head so hard into the concrete that you partially scalped her. I wonder how slow her death was, if she begged you to stop when you're on top of her, stabbing her to death. Think about how small she was and how easy it must have been for you to break her. Now, when I think of my father, I think about the last words that he spoke. The words that ring in my head over and over again. Help me. Get him off me. Please help. Help me. Get him off me. Please help. The last words my father spoke were used to beg for his life. I think about how weak his voice must have been in that moment, the desperation he felt, how exhausted he must have been from the fight, from the loss of blood, how his body was so close to finally failing him. When I think of him, try to imagine exactly what happened in the garage that night. I wonder if he knew Michelle was lying dead just feet away from him. If in that split second of a moment, he felt guilty for her death because she was the first one to encounter you. I wonder if he died feeling that way, guilty. I think about how slow his death was, how long it actually took for him to die, how torturous, painful, and horrific it must have been to lay there slowly dying with you on top of him, stabbing and tearing into him with your teeth like the disgusting animal that you are. These are my new memories of my dad and Michelle. This is what I live with every day, imagining their deaths, almost obsessing over the answers to these questions. Questions that I will never have the answers to because you refuse to tell the truth. I am so angry that this is the only way that I can remember them now. I'm angry that they won't be remembered for the life they lived before you, only the headlines that you have turned them into. This is what wakes me up in the middle of the night as I lay in bed for hours, picturing the way that they died. You have not only destroyed the memory of them for me, but you have caused me to live in a constant state of fear, not only for myself, but for my family. You are the reason I check all my doors at night, the reason I think someone is going to murder my children, the reason I think someone is waiting inside of my house to stab me to death when I get home every day. You're the
Ivy
reason
Stevens, the
that I
daughter
now
of
fight
victim
for
John
this
Stevens, addressing the court and specifically the defendant. We're going to break in here more of the victim impact statements. In the breaking news, Austin Harrouff appears to be very close to being found not guilty by reason of insanity because the prosecution stipulated to it at the beginning of what was to be a bench trial starting today. Back after this.
In 2018, a killer walked the streets of Laredo, Texas.
He took advantage of the vulnerability of this community.
I mean, there was a lot of fear.
Former Border Patrol agent Juan David Ortiz.
Accused of killing 4 women.
Ortiz carried out these murders in a cold and callous way.
Now he faces a jury and life in prison if convicted.
The Border Patrol serial killer trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Back to Court TV Live. We are expecting in very shortly opening statements in the Border Patrol serial killer trial in San Antonio, Texas. Juan David Ortiz accused of murdering 4 women. Court on a delay because not all the jurors showed up this morning. We will bring you those opening statements when they begin. We're also following the case of Austin Harrouff. Right now, we're listening to victim impact statements. The family of Michelle Michon addressed the court now. Ivy Stevens, the daughter of John Stevens, the other victim, addressing the defendant. Let's go back into court.
You did a pretty good job of setting yourself up for that already. You are a disgusting human with a rancid soul. A sick animal that should have been put down a long time ago. You deserve nothing more than to feel despair and debilitating guilt for what you did every second of the day for the rest of your sad, meaningless, and pathetic life. I hope death comes for you sooner than later, and when it does, I will rejoice, because only then will justice be truly served for John and Michelle.
Thank you.
I hope you burn in hell, along with your parents. Wade, you're disgusting.